本当は私気づいていたんです。私を見ていてくれたこと。リゼさんはあなたのことが好き。
Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Danny here. Today I'm talking to you about Tokyo Ghoul. So Tokyo Ghoul was written and drawn by Sui Ishida, and this was published over there in Young Jump. This is the more seinen shonen series that they got going on. So you have stuff like Golden Kamui, Kingdom, All You Need Is Kill, and a bunch of other stuff that they got going on over there. And this was published back in 2011, ended in 2014, a whopping total of 144 chapters. So let's get into it, man. It stars our main character, Kaneki. He's a college student over in Tokyo, and the world he lives in is different. Everything's pretty much the same. However, there are these creatures that roam the world called ghouls. And these are creatures that look human, but however, they have super strength, and they have to consume humans to survive. And the way you can identify them is usually with their iconic red eyes that they show off when they start eating or using their powers that they have. And so with our character Kaneki here, he's very timid, likes to read a lot of books. Not super popular, but he does have his eye on this one lady who's similar in age with him at this cafe he frequents. And another thing that caught his eye was the fact that she reads the same books that he does. They all written by this one famous author that he really likes. And then by happen chance, accidentally bumps into her. Next thing you know, boom, they're on a date shopping at bookstores. And of course, this being a seinen series, things don't go out as they planned. Kaneki, he gets deceived as this girl who is Rize. Turns out that she's actually a ghoul and is ready to feast on him. She's actually famous. She is known as the binge eater and consumes humans more than she really needs to. It's more for pleasure than nourishment. And right before he gets killed, a sudden accident occurs. A bunch of steel beams fall on top of Rize, thus killing her. And luckily for Kaneki, he is still alive by the time the ambulance shows up, takes him to the hospital, and they need to perform emergency surgery now. And luckily, during the conversations that Kaneki had with Rize, we find out they share the same blood type. And what does that really mean? Organ transplants are possible. And so we swap out the bad organs Kaneki has, and they give him the ones that are good on Rize. And by doing so, something changes within him. When he leaves the hospital, he noticed all these changes. We come to find out that he is now part ghoul, as the organs went through this metamorphosis in him. However, he's not a normal ghoul. He only has one red eye, which later down in the story becomes very important. It's one of those classic things as well where, Kaneki's a good guy and he still has his morals. He still thinks himself human, so he dares not eat human himself. And this is causing him to starve, getting desperate, acting all crazy. And the only other person he can talk to is a character we were introduced to at this cafe, whose name is Toka, who's a little bit younger than him, but she's a ghoul. And he has to go for her to help because she's the only ghoul that he really knows. One thing leads to another. He gets super desperate. And luckily, Toka takes him to a person who runs the cafe, whose name is Yoshimura. And he runs this cafe that is all employed by ghouls, offers Kaneki a job here. And his main goal that we know of in the beginning with Kaneki is he wants him to understand ghouls more than what the news tell them, right? Because they're terrifying demonic creatures that just eat humans. And as Kaneki goes through this new life he has by working at this cafe, trying to understand what it means to be a ghoul, interacting with ghouls, and is now in a dilemma of, well, not only is his question in mind, what am I? But now his question is, are ghouls really as bad as people say? The only troubling part is, of course, that they still eat humans, but are they really these demonic beings that we perceive them as? And then the most part is the premise of this manga. Eventually we go into more stuff later down the line, which leads into the main plot of the series. And overall, my take on Tokyo Ghoul right now is that it's okay. The writing is pretty good here. We get into situations that really test Kaneki into what he thinks ghouls really are. starts questioning himself, and really grows from all of that. All that stuff's pretty good. We meet a bunch of interesting characters on the Ghoul side that more or less become supporting cast for him. And all of that is fine and dandy, but I think one of the things that I have sort of a problem with in this series is that it really feels like it's nothing but setup to something bigger. And it really feels like that for a long time. Now, there is an arc that really messes his Kaneki up, drastically changes his character, really gives him a lot of dilemma that he gets. And, even Toka points it out later in the series that, what are you, some kind of tragic hero? And that's kind of the road that this arc forced him to take. And that kind of really jumpstarts the rest of the series into moving forward to what we're going to be expecting for the rest. Because another reason why I thought this was a setup series is because there is a sequel that started only a few months later in the same magazine. Now, I don't really have a big problem with that because long time ago on these reviews, we talked about The Breaker and The Breaker New Waves. And that was the season 2 of that manga. And the first part really was just set up to what the rest of the story was going to be, which happened to be in New Waves. And, Breaker by itself, it's not a bad series, but you really want to get the series going. But it's telling you, well, hold on, let's just really establish everything first, and then we could really haul ass and get into the series, and then it'll be worth it once we get there. And it was worth it in New Waves, because that was a really fantastic manga. And you really can't get to that level unless you have an entire other series developing the exposition you need. It's the same here. We get a lot of exploration into the underground society of ghouls, how the system works. It's really mainly just Kaneki learning that, there is humanity here in the ghouls. It's just unfortunate that they have to eat meat. But then we get some reveals about this specific cafe and how it goes with them handling this human meat, giving it to lesser ghouls who can't hunt for themselves, and all of that stuff. So it's really shedding a whole new light on him. But that's not all we're seeing here. We also get to see the other darker side of the Society of Ghouls, where they really embrace all of that stuff. And we get into those cool situations there where Kaneki decides to grow up and he wants to be more confident in himself by being stronger. So he starts training with Toka, and they sort of form this relationship with each other. I mean, it does pick up and it gets to where you expect because she's the main heroine, he's the main hero. So, of course, something's bound to happen between them. And the road to getting there was rough and almost abrupt. Like, it just came out of nowhere, really. The stuff that we got after that, where they have to split paths because Kaneki decided in himself that, no, if I'm going to do this, I can't be with you guys at the cafe anymore. I have to go a much darker route to get what I want to achieve, and that's just him protecting the people he cares about. And of course, Toka wants to be there, but part of him going down this path is also protecting her. And then, subtly, whenever she comes back into screen, we start to see these feelings and the relationship unfold slowly. And that's good stuff. It just sucks that the way we got there wasn't as fleshed out as I was hoping for. All the stuff we do get in here involving Kaneki and why he's so important into this story was really solid. A lot of great flashbacks with important characters that eventually tie into the series. And so now let's go ahead and swing on over to the other half that becomes more and more important as we get closer to the end, and that is the human side of things. There's the government organization, the CCG, the Commission of Counter Ghouls, and these are investigators that track down ghouls, confirming whether or not people are ghouls, and then executing them. And we get our basic structure of characters in there that become important, and some of them are pretty good. And one of note, which I thought was going to be a more important character, but he might be though, because I still haven't read the sequel yet. But Investigator Amon, I thought he was going to be a way more important character in here and having a lot more screen time, but I think that's just because of the situations that happen here. So he is the first investigator Kaneki fights, and Kaneki, in the back of his mind during this fight and leading up to this, actually, how do we show humans that ghouls are just misunderstood? And he was trying to convey that to Amon here by, sparing his life, not killing him, and just says, look at us in a different way, and then leaves. And so I thought we were going to see a lot of back and forth between these two characters. Amon and Kaneki are going to be the bridge into something that could work out for the ghouls and humans to live peacefully. Even though majority of the ghouls don't care about humans or that society, the ones that we see that interact with Kaneki mostly are okay with humans. They're actually fond of them and would rather coexist with them to a certain capacity. But rather going that route, Kaneki, as I said earlier, he devolves into his own path, a much darker path, and that causes a lot of stuff to happen in his life that changes up. And that's where we get the iconic look of where he has like the gray-white hair and like the, black fingernails. A drastic change of his character, so we really can't get that back and forth. But it does kind of come full circle when they meet again after this twisted version of Kaneki is created. And it brings a lot of trouble into Kaneki's life. All the character development with Kaneki is interesting because it took a very sharp turn during the arc, which was fantastic. And it really broke him down. And to see how he built himself back up, and it just wasn't happening, because again, he is still a young guy, right? He was in college when all of this happened. And then when we get into the human side stuff, yeah, again, a lot of characters we care for, but of course, because Kaneki is on the side of the ghouls, we're seeing a lot of human characters die, which is unfortunate, and we really get to see how expressive they are and how frustrated they are. There's more and more resentment towards the ghouls. So all that stuff has been fantastic. The art really complements the emotions that they're conveying on their faces, as well as the fighting choreography, of course. And then certain designs, not a whole lot, but there's a good amount of unique designs when it comes to the weapons that both the ghouls and the humans use, as well as the masks that they have to wear, so that way the ghouls can protect their identities. And it's really not until the back half of this series to where we really push into what this story really is about, what's been going on in the backgrounds, why it is Kaneki the way he is. We get some answers to that and more questions as it leads us towards the future of this series with its sequel, Tokyo Ghoul RE. So overall, I think this series is good. Go ahead and swing on in and check it out. I would say at least get up to the first fight that we see Kaneki in, and that'll really give you a glimpse as to what most of this series is, right? A lot of questioning, and then, him being defenseless, Toka coming in to save him wanting to get stronger, and just more exploration of this world that we're in. And again, the only downside is that a lot of this just feels like setup and is just saying, well, hold on, guys, like, let's just wait until we get to the next part where everything starts hitting hard. But if I'm being honest, I didn't mind the slice of life stuff too much, just the day-to-day life. If it was more focused on that, I think things could have been a little different. I guess if it was going to go more to the slice of life route, where it's like we're just living the day-to-day life at this cafe, understanding more of the ghouls, I would have wanted more of this build-up between Kaneki and Toka, because, right when it wants to give us the satisfaction of these two characters reuniting again, and then boom, we get thrusted into the more heavy, serious-toned part of the series. From my understanding, there is a time skip in between this and RE. That's just going to delay it even more, which I don't mind as long as we can get it before the very end of the series. But overall, that's really all I have to say about Tokyo Ghoul here. Great characters. The emotions are clearly drawn right, and it's fantastic. So that's going to wrap us up today. Thanks for listening, guys. I think it's good so far. It's okay. We're just going to have to wait till the second half for me to really give my final verdict on the series as a whole, because Tokyo Ghoul by itself is incomplete. I am interested to see where exactly it's going to go, because the last few chapters with Kaneki was something I was not expecting. That'll be the next manga review that we have coming in here. And what did you guys think about this series? And how do you guys feel about it only being the first half of the whole series? We'd love to hear your thoughts. You can send those to unversepodcast@gmail.com, as well as any other questions or comments. We'll be sure to bring those up on the next episode. And then you can follow us anywhere on social media at Unverse Podcast, and we'll let you know when those episodes drop. So thanks, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.
destruction and death imminent. Spray venom like the spiders in the plant. Lifted from innocence. Urban curse, sky high, feeling limitless. Stay wide, both eyes. Vision cloud 9 when the spirit hits. I'm into this experience. There's blood from my mouth, but I'm in no fear of this. Show me what my future life like, and if I'm near to win, where my life goes wide and my breath becomes a living man.